My name is Larry Good. I'm a retired Dallas architect. This afternoon, we're sitting here in the living room of the Elbert Williams house, which is a special preservation victory. The house was built in 1933. Architect was David R. Williams, who was a pioneer in the idea of finding an authentic regional Texas architecture. And this is his masterpiece. And the house was endangered. It's on the market for $13.5 million. Every expectation was that somebody would roar in and tear the house down and turn this into 3 lots with new houses on it. But fortunately, through the efforts of Bobby Clark and Allie Beth Allman and others, Trevor and Jan Reese Jones came in and bought the house and have restored it wonderfully. Bobby's construction company did a magnificent job really bringing this back to original condition. So it's a great victory, and I'm glad we're sitting here in this room. People will see that the walls of this room are brick, both inside and out. It's a cavity wall, load-bearing brick cavity wall, so brick inside and out. And it's got light coming in both over my left shoulder and over my right shoulder, organized for cross ventilation and beautiful natural light. And then behind me, over the fireplace, is the restoration, the recreation of a mural. The well-known Texas artist Jerry Bywaters, former director of Dallas Museum of Art, and his associate Tom Stell designed and painted a mural on that brick back when the house was built. And fabulously, the Reese Joneses wanted to recreate that mural and make this as authentic as possible. So we're seeing behind me the story of the construction of the Texas missions, which is the theme of the mural on those 3 panels of brick. So it's a special room. My parents moved to Dallas when I was 2 years old, so I like to call myself a near native of Dallas. They bought a new house in the Lakewood neighborhood, so I grew up there and went to school there until I headed off to college at the University of Texas and got my architecture degree there, and immediately hustled back to Dallas because this is where I wanted to build a career, raise a family. I married my high school sweetheart, and we've been here ever since. I started in 1982, I started our architectural firm, which was Good, Fulton and Farrell, until we changed the name to GFF shortly before I retired in 2018. The firm, I believe, did a lot of significant work. Some of it was in historic preservation, but it was virtually every building type imaginable. And we did a number of projects in the Park Cities. Park Cities Y, for instance, and other things. In 2020, early 2020, I was involved in preparing a book about the history of this house, the Williams house. And as a result, the Preservation Park Cities folks invited me to come on the board. They thought I was doing something that was related and significant and appropriate relative to their mission. So they invited me to come on the board, which I did, and have really enjoyed it. I would say that the benefits of being a member and an active member of Preservation Park Cities, first of all, it's the people that I've met and have become friends with and enjoyed associating with them as we work on these important missions. But also, a benefit is what you learn about what's going on in the community. I like to think that I'm about as informed about what's happening in Highland Park and University Park physically with new construction, house demolitions, preservation victories, preservation battles. It's a benefit is just being a part of that scene and knowing about it. In mid-2020, the Board of Preservation Park Cities, I was not on the board yet, had a retreat. And at the retreat, there was a long discussion about the fact that so many houses were being lost, and we weren't effective as an organization in getting a handle on that and making a difference. So it was said in that retreat, we've got to know, we've got to have as our agenda as an organization, we've got to know what the 100 most important houses are, most architecturally significant houses are in Highland Park and University Park. And the thought was, if we don't know what's most important, if that's not what's on our radar screen, we're just going to lose them. You know, we'll be chasing our tail. So the Significant Homes Project was born, and we nicknamed it the Top 100, Saving the Top 100. And I'm an incurable volunteer, so I raised my hand and I said, I will chair the committee that does the research and attempts to identify and decide what are the 100 most important houses, architecturally important houses in the Park Cities. And that's how the project was born, and there were 6 or 7 of us that were a part of this committee, and we set out to cover every block in both communities and start a list and do the research that goes along with it. Who was the architect, if there was an architect, when was the house built, some record of its style, any information about important former residents that lived in the house or aspects of the history of the house, that sort of thing. So that's the project. Since I got involved with Preservation Park City, so let's say late 2019, early 2020, up till today, and we're now near the end of 2023, we've lost about, it's either 9 or 10 of the houses that were on our top 100 list, so call it 10%, that's grim. We lost, people are probably aware of the wonderful book that was published in 2008, which is Great American Suburbs, the Park Cities. And that book, Virginia McAllister, Prudence McIntosh, Willis Winters were the authors of that book. We've lost more than 50 houses that were photographed in that book as important houses. So why is this happening now? Why has this increased, especially in the past 3 or 4 years? And I'll suggest 2 reasons, two things which influence this. One is that people who are expecting to spend up to $10 million or more on purchasing the lot and home that they believe they want what they want. And what I mean by that is when you look at what is the popular 21st century lifestyle, there are features about those homes that come to the top. The first one, and maybe the most important one, is people want the main family space, their family gathering entertainment space, to be a grand single room that combines the kitchen function, the dining function, and the family room, living room function into one contiguous space. Well, that did not happen in the teens, 20s, and 30s. That wasn't the lifestyle. That's today's 21st century lifestyle. So our important old homes, as beautiful as they are, have formals. The realtors call them formals. the living room, the dining room, kitchen's tucked away out of sight. And that's the way it was. Well, since these old houses typically don't have that, that's strike one. Another feature I'll mention is the connection of that space to the outdoors. Again, our 21st century lifestyle is that flow from that great space out to the outdoors, where maybe there's an outdoor kitchen and an outdoor space with the flat screen TV hung on the wall outdoors, and you're looking out over the pool. Well, that was the formals, the living and dining space were in the front of the old houses. They didn't look out over the backyard typically. Strike two. And strike three is probably the primary bedroom suite, because what people want today is they want a wonderful sitting room, sleeping room, primary bedroom. And off that is a his and hers bathroom where they don't have to share anything. They don't share the tub, the shower, the lavatories, the potty, and his and hers closets, whereas I like to joke, the closets are often as big as the bedroom itself. That didn't happen in the older homes. So, and they probably want it downstairs, because people are saying, I want to have a home that I can live in when I'm a little older, and I don't want to go up and down the stairs. Let's put the kids and the grandkids upstairs, and our bedroom will be downstairs. So I'm rambling, but I'm painting a picture of why the garden variety purchaser will often think that older home just isn't going to meet these lifestyle desires, and they have the money to get what they want. They don't have to settle. Hence, we're losing a lot of these houses. And I said I'd give you two reasons. Other than these lifestyle issues, there's the matter of pure economics, because the I'll call it lot value, but let's just say what somebody has to pay to get that site, whether it's the site with the house on it or whether it's just the site. These days it's somewhere between $5 and $10 million in the more prominent parts of the Park Cities. The value of the improvements, the existing improvements on that lot, are roughly 10%. Let's say it's a 4,000 or 4,500 square foot house that's current value is maybe $150 a square foot. That's a $600,000 house in value on a $6 million lot. So that house is not of primary impact to the economics. And that's another reason why the thought of buying that property and scraping the house is often on people's mind. So we're losing some very important houses. I'm gonna discuss three houses in particular that I'm really sad about. They're maybe our most significant losses since we started the Significant Homes Project, the Top 100 project. The first one that we lost, 4712 Lakeside Drive. This was Al Hill Jr.'s house. Before that, it was built in 1918 for Dr. E.H. Carey. And Dr. Carey, both Dr. Carey and Mr. Hill could be thought of as civically very active and very important. So there was important history in the residents of this house. The house itself was a very interesting Italian 8 style home, and architecturally it was built by a guy named C.W. Bulger and Son. So we know who the contractor was. We don't know who the architect was. But nevertheless, very important house in a prominent location, sitting there on Lakeside Drive, corner of Lakeside and Gillen, so looking out over Exall Lake and Lakeside Park. And one thing that's very fortunate is that Preservation Park Cities hustled in and got permission to document that house inside and out. So we at least have in our archives a good record of that home. But alas, we've lost it. The second one I'll discuss is 3800 Beverly. 3800 Beverly was a majestic corner of Beverly and Eaton, northwest corner of Beverly and Eaton. And it was a majestic neoclassical style house. It had 6 prominent columns, 2-story high columns, which created a portico across the front of the house. And it was just beautiful. And designed by Hal Thompson, completed in 1919. So it had a prominent architect, maybe our most prominent architect of that time. And the tragedy of this one is that, and I should say this too, Preservation Park Cities approached the realtor that was representing the purchaser and requested an audience. What we learned we need to do, the whole idea of having these houses on a radar screen, is when it appears one's going to change hands, we would love to have a real pleasant conversation with that prospective purchaser, let them know about the history of the house, help them weigh alternatives to whether demolition or restoration and addition is a good alternative. Well, we tried that on this house and we were not given access to the owner, so we had no ability to have a conversation with them. I'll finally finish my sentence. So the tragedy is that they tore the house down, they cleared the site, they set up the perimeter fencing, and then shut the project down. And it sits there today. They've removed all the mock-up and the job site office and the fencing, and there's a for sale sign out there on the lot. So we lost it unnecessarily, and we just are so hurt that we couldn't have an audience and discuss maybe that could have been saved. And the third one is the one that I am most disappointed about. It's a mid-century house. It was one of our top 10 houses. It was 3908 Lexington, so that's the corner of Lexington and Highland, northeast corner. And this house was designed by O'Neill Ford, who was perhaps Texas' most prominent architect from, say, 1945 or 50, the immediate post-war period, until about 1980. Passed away in 82 or 83. Practiced in both Dallas and San Antonio. Well, Neil Ford did wonderful Texas modern houses. And this one was designed for Cecil and Ida Green. And Cecil Green was one of the co-founders of Texas Instruments and the University of Texas at Dallas. And he and his wife Ida were wonderful philanthropists in Dallas until their death. So here was a case of a prominent architect, a beautifully designed house, which I'll say a few words about, and prominent ownership. So what a tragedy to lose that. The house was very simple. It was a long, extended, low-pitched roof, copper standing seam roof, beautiful details. And then it turned and had a courtyard space in the back that was wonderfully sheltered. It was elegant, it was quiet, it was demure. It was just the kind of house that was spectacular and really an example of great design. Sorry to lose it. I think that one of the most important factors that plays into the decision to renovate a house, renovate, add on, restore, is what we call good bones. I'm sure everybody who's listening to this has used the term, oh, that house has good bones. Well, what does that mean, really? To me, that means it's got a particularly workable floor plan. It's not It's not strange and quirky and misshapen rooms. It's got a nice floor plan with a great quality of light. I mentioned that we're sitting in this wonderful living room that's got light coming in from both sides, views out to McFarland, views back to the Turtle Creek. This house has good bones. Another aspect of good bones is what I guess I would call discipline of design. Good design to me is an exercise in restraint. It's not trying to do too many things. It's keeping it simple, keeping it straightforward. That's where elegance comes in. That's where the standing the test of time comes in. So back to the question, what makes a good candidate for renovation? Those are the characteristics of good bones. So it's not style related. I don't think style really plays into whether a house is a candidate for renovation or not. I will acknowledge this. In the Park Cities, we have many Tudor houses. Tudor, as a Tudor revival, as a style, was extremely popular in the 20s and 30s in particular. And one of the characteristics of Tudor is that it's dark. It tends to have smaller windows, broken up with leaded glass details and stuff. So one aspect of style that I will admit is that it's hard to make a Tudor house a particularly open, light-filled, gracious house. So that can be sometimes a challenge for restoring a house of that style. But generally speaking, it's not style. It has to do with the good bones of the house, how the entry is handled, stair to the second floor or something. So there's one other aspect that plays into what makes a property, a house, a lot, a great candidate for renovation and addition, and that is the ability to put a significant addition in the rear of the yard. If the position of the existing house, the shape of that house relative to the lot, is such that there is the room behind it to add that great room that I described, the living, dining, kitchen space, or the large primary bedroom suite, then that really makes for the opportunity to restore and add on rather than demo that house. So that's something. I'll even tell a brief story about a wonderful Al Thompson house on Gillen where there is exactly that condition. The existing house leaves behind it a marvelous space on a large lot to add significant, wonderful additions. And so I think that's gonna help that house stay. I don't think anybody will tear it down because of the room there is on the lot to add on. So on that Gillen house, I happen to know the realtor pretty well. So I took a survey of the lot and I drew a footprint which illustrated the size in square footage of what can be added to the lot, still obeying all of the setback lines and that sort of thing, and provided it to the realtor so that any prospective purchaser could have something in their hands and say, oh, look, I can keep that existing house and add 6,000 square feet of space behind it to accomplish one of these purposes that are important. I really think we're starting to see some change. We're starting to see demolitions slow, and some of that can be attributed to the economy. We're in a time where there are higher interest rates and So people are making decisions more cautiously. So we are seeing that have an influence on demolitions. But there's more of a buzz in the park cities about preservation. And I think the culture is starting to change. There's an awareness of this now that we didn't have 2 or 3 years ago. And people are communicating. We're seeing it on social media. We're seeing it in the attendance at our Preservation Park Cities educational meetings and other events where people really care. They care about the history and heritage of the park cities, and they're disappointed that we're losing so many of these important houses. So it's starting to slow. And I think the leadership in both the town of Highland Park, and by this I mean the elected leadership, and the staff of both the town and the city are aware of how important this is. And they're opening a dialogue with us. They're willing to talk about strategies about what we can do to make a difference. So I think we're starting to perhaps turn a corner, at least slow it down a little bit. There are some things that Preservation Park Cities is talking about, and in fact we'll hope to have an audience excuse me, with the town of Highland Park shortly after the new year. And it goes something like this. The first step is to take our inventory of historic properties, what we used to call top 100, and now we call it the inventory of historic properties, and have it be officially recognized by both the town and the city. Because even if you don't wrap any ordinances around that yet, to have documented at Town Hall and City Hall what are these houses worthy of preservation is step one. So I want to try to get that accomplished first. Then what we might apply to that might be something like this. One is that demolition permits would have a few more hoops to jump through. One hoop would be that you can't get your demolition permit until you submit for your building permit, your application for building permit for the house which is going to replace it. And what that'll do is that will stop demolition for speculation, where, for instance, a home builder comes in and scrapes a house and sticks up a for sale sign where he'll build a suit. And we're seeing a lot of that, so we want to slow that down. And that would also stop the idea of buying the lot next door, demolishing the house, and that just becomes a play yard where you put a little soccer field or add a pool or something like that, where you've lost a house just to create a grander yard. So that's one idea. Another idea is a 90-day cooling off period, a demolition delay ordinance, which means that for any of these properties that are on the list, demolition permit has to be held for 90 days. And Preservation Park Cities is made aware of the application, and it gives us a chance to open that dialogue with the prospective purchaser and see if we can talk about alternatives. And then finally, what we need to get done is a tree ordinance so that the demolition permit also has a tree survey where you show which trees you plan to demolish, and we restrict it. You can't demolish any heritage trees that are in a required front yard or side yard. If they're not in the footprint of the house, why do you take the tree out? So we try to reduce the amount of clear cutting that we get on the lots. What I've always said to myself and say out loud to anybody who'll listen is that the built environment in the park cities, our houses and public buildings, commercial buildings, SMU buildings, which are historic, are the visible record of our history, of our heritage, and therefore they should not be lost, because that's what you can see when you're driving the streetscape. That's what you can tell your kids when your kids say, "Mom, Dad, what's that? Tell me about that." It's the built evidence of our history that is so important to that. So Preservation Park Cities is doing a couple of things that are attempting to really focus on spreading awareness of the history. Every year we have a series of educational programs. These are little evening lectures or events where we can invite our membership and others to come and be educated a little bit about matters of landscape architecture or the history. So we do those educational programs. And then the board about a year ago approved the idea of creating a book out of the Significant Homes program, really creating a book which documents the top 100, which has now grown to 160 that'll be in this book. So The Houses of the Park Cities is the forthcoming book, which will serve as a guidebook and will create a little capsule description of each of the houses that's in our inventory of architecturally significant properties, which should be preserved. And that book is, again, coming out probably in March of 2024, and we're excited about that. So that'll really spread awareness, and we hope to get one. We're printing 2,000 copies, so we hope to have them on as many of the coffee tables or library shelves of the people in the Park Cities as possible.